Hello, I am Marcus Sabatello and I'm standing here at a historical place. Several decades ago, close to here was the location of the Iron Curtain, a series of fortifications between Eastern and Western Europe that you could not cross. Today, you can walk around here freely. The river that you see in the background connects many different countries and cities. To me, it is a symbol of openness and connectedness. I named my company after this river, Danube Tech. Little over 10 years ago, I stood here at exactly the same place and I recorded a video that I called The Three Visions. Around that time, a number of communities were working on some very interesting ideas for internet infrastructure. The first of these ideas was VRM, Vendor Relationship Management. The idea that just like companies today manage their relationships with customers, so should customers be able to manage their relationships with companies. The second idea that started to emerge at that time was the federated social web. The idea that if we as individuals want to interact online, that should be possible not always through one single centralized service, but in a way that uses direct connections between us and that is federated. The third one of the ideas that started to emerge back then was that of a personal data store. The idea that as an individual I should be able to have a place where my personal data is stored and where I can control it. And then at that time we started to think about what should internet infrastructure look like when it comes to personal data, when it comes to digital identity. We were working on new protocols, new data models, new architectures to try and make internet infrastructure look a little bit more like we interact in the real world, in a way that is more peer-to-peer, more egalitarian, and without centralized authorities and intermediaries. Over the next few years there were a lot of projects, a lot of initiatives, a lot of events, such as the Federated Social Web Summit, a series of events known as Unlike Us in the Netherlands, where alternative social networking infrastructures were discussed. Grassroots movements such as crypto parties, remote storage, unhosted, the Freedom Box, events like the Circumvention Tech Summit, the Internet Freedom Festival, My Data, very important, Mes Infos, and a series of workshops in Europe about personal information management systems. Activity Pub, Privacy Week, Sovereign, and many events that try to imagine a decentralized web. Get Decentralized Workshop, a Decentralized Web Symposium, Decentralized Camp, a Decentralized Web Summit. And of course, very influential movements and initiatives and events such as Rebooting the Web of Trust, the Internet Identity Workshop, and the Decentralized Identity Foundation. At some point we realized that if we wanted to build a decentralized web that respects human rights, we need to work on decentralized identity, and for that we need to work on decentralized identifiers. Without identifiers we cannot have relationships, we cannot refer to each other, we cannot name each other, we cannot establish connections. Without that we cannot share data, we cannot exchange messages. Without that we cannot establish higher level concepts such as trust and reputation. So we thought decentralized identifiers would be the basis for the digital infrastructure that we wanted. And then at some point something very important happened that inspired us, that was super exciting. The idea that we would be able to standardize decentralized identifiers at the World Wide Web Consortium. This meant that suddenly we would be able to not just experiment and think about things, but we might be able to build decentralized identifiers into the web itself. For us as Danube Tech, we were a small startup. We didn't have a lot of resources, a lot of funding, But I didn't hesitate. There was no question that, of course, we would join W3C as a paying member in order to be able to pursue this effort. And now that we are at this point, I would like to propose that we remember a little bit how we got to this point. On this journey towards more decentralized web, there were a lot of events, a lot of people who worked towards this, and a lot of them, how should I put this? A lot of them didn't have their careers in mind, or they didn't have a business model. Take, for example, the young students in New York City who worked on Diaspora, one of the first prominent decentralized social networking projects. A book was written about them, and the title of that book was More Awesome Than Money. They did it because it just felt to be the right thing. On this journey towards the decentralized web, there have been many pioneers and heroes. There have been sacrifices and losses. A lot of people worked on this who simply felt in their heart that we needed more decentralized web as a basis for human rights and for more democratic societies. You know, I think that sometimes technology is about making money, sometimes it is about getting rich fast, sometimes technology is about superiority, about being able to do things that you couldn't do before, or being able to do things that others can't. Sometimes new technology is about fixing the problems introduced by old technology. Sometimes technology is about fulfilling basic human needs or desires. And sometimes technology is actually about making people's lives better and about improving society. But that's not all there is to it. I believe that sometimes, every now and then, every once in a while, technology is about dreams, big dreams. The dream of freedom, the dream of digital sovereignty, the dream of individual control, empowerment and agency. The dream that if we can establish a digital identity, a nucleus of who we are online that only belongs to us, if we can do that, then we can establish a private sphere which becomes the basis for democratic and free societies, which allows us to establish a public sphere that is globally interconnected and promotes peace. Now that we are at this place, I propose that we proceed. We proceed with our work, and we discuss business models. That's okay. We discuss different political perspectives on certain technologies. We discuss the advantages and the disadvantages of certain technological choices that we make. But in order to fulfill this dream, we need decentralized identity and we need decentralized identifiers in order to be able to establish that link between who we are in the digital world and in the physical world. I ask that we remember this dream.